Give to God. Put Him first financially. Why? As explained in Buddhism and elsewhere, this is the first quality to be developed in your character on the road to enlightenment. Many conscientious people study self-help methods galore, yet do not receive the benefits from them that they should because they ignore this first step. Various schemes have been suggested for getting rich quick. Most of them fail because they are based on getting, not giving. They have no spiritual basis. The reason many people fail to receive their good in life is because they do not practice giving or returning impersonally to the universe in a systematic basis a portion of all that the universe shares with them. 2 businessmen in Chicago once told me that they held the local franchise on one of the most famous success courses in America, one that cost thousands of dollars to take. Though they prospered for a time, they eventually went broke. They finally realized why. Their course had only emphasized getting, not giving. Their course had not taught the spiritual side of prosperity. It had not taught its students to tithe their way to prosperity by returning to the universe 1/10 of all they received. It was only after these 2 businessmen found their way into one of the local New Thought churches and began to put God first financially that their financial affairs stabilized and they began to permanently prosper. When any person withholds that which belongs to the universe, his life is thrown out of balance and he experiences lack in some form. It may be lack of supply, lack of health, lack of love, lack of spiritual understanding, or lack of direction in his life. It is only as we let go of our littleness that we can expand into the larger life. So it is not enough to say that you believe God is the source of your supply, as previously suggested. You must prove that you believe God is the source of your supply by first sharing with Him. This keeps you in touch with a universal source of abundance. The billionaire Solomon pointed out why the wise use this ancient success method and what it could mean to you when he advised, "Honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy vats shall overflow with new wine." Give to yourself. Yes, open the mind to receive by giving to yourself, because all progress begins with self-improvement. It is just as possible to overgive to others as it is to undergive to yourself. Overgiving to others and undergiving to yourself unbalances the law and keeps your good from coming through. You must first give your attention to the improvement and development of yourself before you can possibly help others. You cannot possibly give to others unless you first have something to give. You must first have strength, wisdom, and substance before you can share these qualities with others. There are those misguided people who think it is selfish to emphasize self-improvement first. But it is only after self-improvement that you are capable of helping others. When you do just the opposite, when you overgive to others and undergive to yourself, you feel depleted, and you are. This causes within you a sense of lack which is degrading and limiting. Because of this, overgiving to others is self-defeating. It accomplishes nothing constructive. Psychologists talk about the sin of parents who overgive to their children. This suppresses their children's talents, and it overworks the parents. Such overgiving harms everyone concerned. In the recent age of permissiveness, we have witnessed the damaging results of overgiving parents in their confused, bewildered children. Conversely, my own father reluctantly gave as little as possible to his children. The philosophy of undergiving had been a part of his upbringing. It caused us many hardships, and it took me years to overcome the poverty, consciousness that resulted. So let us seek to strike a happy balance. The philosophers of old advised, to thine own self be true. Give something to yourself right away. It might be a new book you wish to read, an item of clothing or jewelry, or something for your home or office. It might be a treat of going out to dinner, to the theater, to a party, or taking a vacation. It might be the deliberate setting aside of some daily time for prayer, meditation, and inspirational study. It might be something, big or small, tangible or intangible. After giving to God and to yourself, then give something to someone else. After you give something to someone else, bless whatever it is that you give. Bless the person or persons to whom you gave it. Then release both the gift and the recipient. Any man, woman, or child can transform his life by transforming what he gives out, what he gives to God, what he gives to himself, and what he gives out to others. When you aren't sure what to give to others, that is the time to declare, I give under divine direction. Then watch the hunches and ideas that come. You'll be shown what to give, where, and to whom. Many of the blessings you want most are within your reach. By your acts of giving, you open the way to attract the blessings you desire. These blessings have probably been waiting to reach you, but they were blocked by your own lack of giving. There was no free channel through which they could pass. By giving under divine direction, you open a channel through which these blessings are free to arrive. An early prosperity teacher of mine often said, first give to God, then give to mankind as God directs. After you give to God, yourself, and others, then get ready to receive. You can get ready to receive by preparing to receive. There are those who say, I give, but I do not expect to receive, and they do not. An unhappy lady explained, I teach a private prosperity class in my home, but I do not take an offering. I give, but I do not believe I should expect to receive. And she didn't, but she resented not receiving. She should have resented not receiving because she was unbalancing the law of increase by giving, and by not opening the way to receive. It was pointed out to this lady that it was fine to teach such a class, but that she was not only short-changing herself, she was also short-changing her students by giving them the impression they could get something for nothing. She should either have charged handsomely for her course or open the way right there in class for her students to prove the law of increase by extending an invitation to them to give generous tithes and offerings in appreciation for the priceless instruction they were receiving. She was cheating herself, and she was cheating them by her fearful attitude. It is reported that in the early days of the Unity movement, a visiting metaphysician spoke to the workers employed by the Unity School of Christianity at their headquarters then located in Kansas City, Missouri. The guest speaker was introduced by Unity's co-founder, Charles Fillmore. Early in his talk, this well-meaning but somewhat self-righteous speaker said, "In my ministry, we do not pass the offering plate. We leave one at the back of the room, and if anyone wishes to give something, the plate is available, but I do not stress giving." According to the oft-repeated report, that's as far as he got. Charles Fillmore walked up to the lecturer and said, "You may think and teach what you wish in your organization, but in this one we believe in passing the plate because we know the law of giving and receiving. Not only do we pass the plate in our meetings, but each plate is always filled to overflowing." Students of practical Christianity want to give so they can prosper, and so they can help this movement to prosper. It is little wonder that Mr. Fillmore later became known as one of the pioneers of positive thinking, or that the Unity movement, which he co-founded, became a successful organization that has inspired millions over the years. You can see how a contrast in attitudes brought a contrast in results. One teacher did not believe in teaching the universal law of giving and receiving, and did not. Her students were few. The other teacher did believe in teaching the universal law of giving and receiving, and he became the head of a prosperous organization that has helped countless people around the world. You can give up any false ideas you may have had about receiving. Your receiving doesn't stop anyone else's receiving. We live in a lavish universe, and there's plenty for all. The owner of a charm school was widowed with small children to support. People kept saying, "She is a lovely girl," but no one wants to marry someone with all those children. That's too much financial responsibility to assume. This attractive widow paid no attention to that kind of talk. She taught prosperity principles in her charm course. She told her students they must develop a prosperous consciousness in order to become charming and successful in every phase of their lives. She did everything that occurred to her personally to prepare to receive a better way of life. She bought a striking gold designer's suit which she constantly wore. It cost $200, which was a huge sum for such an item 23 years ago. Once a week she invited me to dine with her, always in the best restaurants, though sometimes she barely had the price of our lunch. Did the act of preparing for greater good attract it to her? She married a widower of third-generation wealth. He had 4 children. He helped raise her 3, and later they had one of their own, a total of 8 children. While everyone around her was talking lack and limitation, she was quietly preparing for just the opposite, and what she prepared for, she got. I find it interesting that none of the people who tried to mentally limit her future ever attracted wealth to themselves. not through hard work, marriage, or a windfall. The limited thoughts they meant for her they unwittingly attached to themselves. Many people's prayers are not answered because they keep asking in prayer, but they do not follow through by getting ready to receive. After you prepare to receive, you are then ready for the next step. Speak the word of receiving. When you daily declare that you are receiving, your words make a believer out of your subconscious mind, which then starts working with you to help make it so. The way to avoid a pinched, narrow way of life is to deliberately speak the word of receiving. Declare daily, I am receiving. I am receiving now. I am receiving all the wealth that the universe has for me now. A businessman started doing this, and within 1 year his income became 8 times what it had been. Another businessman says he has received unexpected checks of $1,000 or more every time he has consistently declared, all that is mine by divine right now comes to me speedily, richly, freely. I am receiving now. As a teacher of practical mysticism recently said, students of prosperity need to know when to release the inner work they have done, then relax so that outer results can come. There are resting places in mental action. There is a time to fish and time to dry your nets. On various occasions during my life, greater good has come to me. After long periods of inner work, when I felt guided to release it all to its perfect results. Several books have gotten finished after I did this. Happy changes in location and work, a better income, larger homes, have all appeared after I worked inwardly, then turned loose, relaxed, and let go. So after speaking the word of receiving for a period, then declare that you have received and release it. Assume that greater good is already yours, since you have claimed it on the inner plane. This helps that good to appear on the outer plane as visible results in rich appropriate form under divine timing. When you have reached this point of release, declare, it is finished, it is done. I give thanks that I have received, and that my good appears in rich appropriate form under divine timing. As you relax and let go, this process can open the way for unlimited results. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. In these words, Jesus expressed an infallible law of mind, the law that one idea must be dissolved before another can take its place. If you have in your mind any thought that someone has wronged you, you cannot let in the cleansing power of spirit and the richness of spiritual substance until you have cast out the thought of the wrong, have forgiven it fully. You may be wondering why you have failed to get spiritual illumination or to find the consciousness of spiritual substance. Perhaps the reason is here, a lack of room for the true thoughts because other thoughts fill your mind. If you are not receiving the spiritual understanding you feel you should have, you should search your mind carefully for unforgiving thoughts. Thoughts are things and occupy space in the mind realm. They have substance and form and may easily be taken as permanent by one not endowed with spiritual discernment. They bring forth fruit according to the seed planted in the mind, but they are not enduring unless founded in spirit. Thoughts are alive, and are endowed by the thinker with a secondary thinking power. That is, the thought entity that the I informs assumes an ego and begins to think on its own account. Thoughts also think, but only with the power you give to them. Tell me what kind of thoughts you are holding about yourself and your neighbors, and I can tell you just what you may expect in the way of health, finances, and harmony in your home. Are you suspicious of your neighbors? You cannot love and trust in God if you hate and distrust men. The two ideas, love and hate, or trust and mistrust, simply cannot both be present in your mind at one time. And when you are entertaining one, you may be sure the other is absent. Trust other people and use the power that you accumulate from that act to trust God. There is magic in it. It works wonders. Love and trust are dynamic, vital powers. Are you accusing men of being thieves and fear that they are going to take away from you something that is your own, with such a thought generating fear and even terror in your mind and filling your consciousness with darkness? Where is there room for the Father's light of protection? Rather, build walls of love and substance around yourself. Send out swift, invisible messengers of love and trust for your protection. They are better guards than policemen or detectives. Do not judge others as regards their guilt or innocence. Consider yourself and how you stand in the sight of the Father for having thoughts about another's guilt. Begin your reform with yourself. That means much to one who enjoys an understanding of mind and its laws, though it may mean little to the ordinary individual. He who knows himself superficially, just his external personality, thinks he has reformed when he has conformed to the moral and governmental laws. He may even be filled with his own self-righteousness and daily lift up his voice to praise God that he is not as other men are, that he has forgiven men their transgressions. He looks on all men who do not conform to his ideas of morality and religion as being sinners and transgressors, and thanks God for his own insight and keenness, but he is not at peace. Something seems lacking. God does not talk to him face to face because the mind where God and man meet is darkened by the murky thought that other men are sinners. Our first work in any demonstration is to contact God. Therefore, we must forgive all men their transgressions. Through this forgiveness, we cleanse our minds so that the Father can forgive us our own transgressions. Our forgiving all men includes ourselves. You must also forgive yourself. Let the finger of denial erase every sin or falling short that you have charged up against yourself. Pay your debt by saying to that part of yourself which you think has fallen short, "Thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing befall thee." Then loose him and let him go. Treat sin as a mental transgression instead of considering it as a moral deflection. Deny in thought all tendency to the error way and hold yourself firmly to the Christ Spirit, which is your divine self. Part company forever with accusing conscience. Those who have resolved to sin no more have nothing in common with guilt. Shall I be in debt as long as I hold debts against others? We find this to be the law of mind. A thought of debt will produce debt. So long as you believe in debt, you will go into debt and accumulate the burdens that follow that thought. Whoever has not forgiven all men their debts is likely to fall into debt himself. Does this mean that you should give receipted bills to all those who owe you? No, that would not be erasing the thought of debt from your mind. First, deny in mind that any man or woman owes you anything. If necessary, go over your list of names separately and sincerely forgive the thought of debt which you have been attaching to each person named. More bills may be collected in this way than in any other, for many of these people will pay what they owe when you send them this forgiving thought. Debt is a contradiction of the universal equilibrium, and there is no such thing as lack of equilibrium in all the universe. Therefore, in spirit and in truth there is no debt. However, men hold on to a thought of debt, and this thought is responsible for a great deal of sorrow and hardship. The true disciple realizes his supply in the consciousness of omnipresent, universally possessed abundance. Spirit substance is impartial and owned in common, and no thought of debt can enter into it. Debts exist in the mind, and in the mind is the proper place to begin liquidating them. These thought entities must be abolished in mind before their outer manifestations will pass away and stay away. The world can never be free from the bondage of financial obligations until men erase from their minds the thoughts of mine and thine that generates debts and interest. Bless your creditors with the thought of abundance as you begin to accumulate the wherewithal to pay off your obligations. Keep the faith they had in you by including them in your prayer for increase. Begin to free yourself at once by doing all that is possible with the means you have, and as you proceed in this spirit, the way will open for you to do more. Through the avenues of spirit, more means will come to you, and every obligation will be met. If you are a creditor, be careful of the kind of thoughts you hold over your debtor. Avoid the thought that he is unwilling to pay you, or that he is unable to pay you. One thought holds him in dishonesty, and the other holds him subject to lack, and either of them tends to close the door to the possibility of his paying you soon. Think well and speak well of all those who owe you. If you talk about them to others, avoid calling them names that you would not apply to yourself. Cultivate a genuine feeling of love for them, and respect their integrity in spite of all appearances. Declare abundant supply for them, and thus help them to prosper. Pray and work for their good, as well as for your own, for yours is inseparable from theirs. You owe your debtor quite as much as he owes you, and yours is a debt of love. Pay your debt to him, and he will pay his to you. This rule of action never fails. Far-seeing Christians look forward to an early resumption of the economic system inaugurated by the early followers of Jesus. They had all things in common, and no man lacked anything. But before we can have a truly Christian community founded on a spiritual basis, we must be educated into a right way of thinking about finances. If we should all get together and divide all our possessions, it would be but a short time until those who have the prevailing financial ideas would manipulate our finances, and plethora on one hand, and lack on the other would again be established. The world cannot be free from the bondage of debt and interest until men start to work in their minds to erase those things from consciousness. If the United States forgave the nations of Europe all their debts and wiped the slate clean, the law would not necessarily be fulfilled, for there would probably remain a thought that they still owed us, and that we had made a sacrifice in canceling the obligations. We should not feel very friendly about it, and would not truly forgive them, and in that case the error thought would be carried on. We must first forgive the error thought that they owe us money, and that we would be losing money by canceling the debts. The man who is forced to forgive debt does not forgive it. Above all, we should fill our mind with the consciousness of that divine abundance which is so manifest everywhere in the world today. There is as much substance as there ever was, but its free flow has been interfered with through selfishness. We must rid our mind of the selfish acquisitiveness that is so dominant in the race thought, and in that way do our part in the great work of freeing the world from avarice. It is the duty of every Christian metaphysician to help in the solution of this problem by affirming that the universal spirit of supply is now becoming manifest as a distributing energy the world over, that all stored up, hoarded, vicious thoughts are being dissolved, that all people have things in common, that no one anywhere lacks anything, and that the divine law of distribution of infinite supply that Jesus demonstrated is now being made manifest throughout the world. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. There is a legitimate commerce that is carried on by means of what is called credit. Credit is a convenience to be used by those who appreciate its value and are careful not to abuse it, for to do so would be to ruin it. However, many persons are not equipped to use the credit system to advantage and are likely to abuse it. In the first place, few individuals are familiar with the intricacies of sound credit systems and often assume obligations without being certain of their ability to meet them, especially should some unforeseen complication arise. Frequently, an individual loses all that he invests and finds himself involved in a burden of debt in addition. Such things are not in divine order and are largely responsible for retarding prosperity. No one should assume an obligation unless he is prepared to meet it promptly and willingly when it comes due. One who knows God as his unfailing resource can be assured of his supply when it is needed. Then why should he plunge into debt when he is confident of his daily supply without debt? There are no creditors or debtors in God's kingdom. If you are in that kingdom, you need no longer be burdened with the thought of debt, either as a debtor or a creditor. Under divine law, there is no reaching out for things that are beyond one's present means. There is an ever-increasing richness of consciousness coming from the certain knowledge that God is infinite and unfailing supply. Outer things conform to the inner pattern, and riches are attracted to the one who lives close to the unselfish heart of God. His environment is made beautiful by the glory of the presence, and there is satisfying and lasting prosperity in his affairs. There is but one way to be free from debt. That is the desire to be free, followed by the realization that debt has no legitimate place in God's kingdom and that you are determined to erase it entirely from your mind. As you work toward your freedom, you will find it helpful to have daily periods for meditation and prayer. Do not concentrate on debts or spoil your prayers by constantly thinking of debts. Think of that which you want to demonstrate, not that from which you seek freedom. When you pray, thank the Father for His care and guidance, for His provision and plenty, for His love and wisdom, for His infinite abundance and your privilege to enjoy it. Here are a few prosperity prayers that may help establish you in the truth of plenty and erase the error thought of debt. They are offered as suggestions for forming your own prayers, but may be used as given with excellent results. I am no longer anxious about finances. Thou art my all-sufficiency in all things. The spirit of honesty, promptness, efficiency, and order is now expressed in me and in all that I do. I am free from all limitations of mortal thought about quantities and values. The superabundance of riches of the Christ mind are now mine, and I am prospered in all my ways. The 23rd Psalm, a treatment to free the mind of the debt idea. Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Jehovah forever.